Well, I think we're live, and hello everyone, and welcome to this going to be a very short stream today. I think just answer a few questions online, and in fact, the first question I'm going to look at is actually answered already, so that really helps, I guess. Of course, just before we start, I just wanted to say. Just recognize everything that's going on in Ukraine, and any FMEs who happen to live in that country, be sure that we're thinking of you, and we hope everything ends soon, because it's a horrible situation. Anyway, so let's get on with the looking at the questions today. The first question was how to filter records based on the null value of a field, which is quite straightforward and was demonstrated and answered by David in Switzerland. But I thought, we should probably just sort of cover a few bits about nulls and how they work, just so that in the future maybe we can I can refer people to this video and say, oh look, this is more information about it. So let's just do that. Let's just run through some null stuff in FME. And the big thing about nulls is about I don't know how many different types of null there are. I think we mapped like between 8 and 10 different types, but there's lots of different types. I mean, null really means a value that doesn't have a value, or an attribute that doesn't have a value. And so what do you mean by it doesn't have a value? Is the value missing? Is the value empty? Is it a numeric value set to 0? Is it just like an empty string? Or is it an actual null value? Because some formats, mostly database ones, will have a particular value called null, which means nothing, I guess. I think there's this famous cartoon comparing nulls and empty to toilet roll holders. So when your toilet roll is empty and you've just got the inner roll that's rattling around on the holder, that's empty. If it wasn't there at all, that would be null. Or if the toilet roll holder was there but there was no toilet roll, that would be missing. If there was no holder, no nothing, that would be null, I guess. It would be, and maybe even a sign that says, there is no toilet roll here. Because that's what null really is about, is saying this doesn't have a value when we're saying it doesn't have a value. So it's definitely different to empty and missing. So let's have a look at that. I know I've got some data. You've probably seen this before, map info tab, and the parks data that I used very often for various demos and training and whatnot. And I happen to know there's null values in here. So if I run this translation, I'll just zoom in a bit, just to make sure you can see that. Turn caching on. Let me just run that, and we'll see what we get. So the visual preview, we look in there, and I can see some of the values for park name are set to missing. So missing, and some of them are set to -9999, which is just maybe another way of saying this is a null value. I can't remember if -9999 is an official null value in MapInfo, or whether that's just something that was made up for this data. But it is possible that a format can have its own value like -9999. And everything else is missing, so it means that attribute just isn't there. If I query that value in here, you'll see in the feature information that washrooms doesn't exist on that feature. So how do we know it's missing? That's the question. Well, we know it's missing because it's part of the schema. We read the schema when we read the data, and so we know that data is missing from that feature because we know it's part of the schema. So that's how we know something isn't there that should be there. Because otherwise you think, well, how do I know that something's missing if it's not there? Well, this is how the schema tells us that it should be there. So, I mean, with a tester, we can test for, we can actually test for null values, and we can test for other types of null as well. So we can actually say, is the attribute null, is it empty, is it missing? So if I test is an attribute null, then we should find that there aren't any nulls in this because none of them were null. They're all either there or they're missing. Null is very specific in that case. And the same thing with empty. Is that an empty string? Well, no, they shouldn't be empty strings. What they are, in fact, is missing. Like so. And now we find that 15 values are actually missing. So that's how we can tell the difference on in a tester, like is something missing, is it empty, is it null? Those are the three key ones that we can look at in the tester. And we actually combine them all together as well to say, does the attribute have a value? An attribute has a value is the opposite, so it's like it's not null, it's not empty, and it's not missing. I actually asked for that to be put on there because it was a pain to have to say park name is not missing, park name is not empty, park name is not null, just to pass values through. So attribute has a value just says if it's got a value, it's not one of those empty or null or whatever values, then the data passes through. So that if you don't really know what it's going to be, you just want to make sure there's a value in there, that's the test to do. If you want to test whether it's specifically null, specifically empty, or specifically missing, then you would use the other test. So that's just a couple of quick things there to look at what it looks like in the visual preview and also how to control nulls in the tester. And we do it using these settings down there. Those operators rather than settings, I guess. The other question might be, well, how do I set something to null? And we can do that with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a sampler transformer in there, and I'm going to pick out every fifth feature, for example. So most of them just go on. The other ones I'm going to set to null somehow. How do we set something to null? Well, there's various ways we can do that. We can use an attribute creator or an attribute manager transformer. So here, for example, I could say park name and just leave it empty like that, and that would mean park name is empty. So let's just run that and see what it looks like. Where are we? Park name. Okay, it's not there, it's empty. It's an empty value. It's not missing anymore because it is there, it's just empty. We could set it to, let's see, we can set it specifically to null. Like so. That's interesting. I thought it would. Yeah, it comes up null in the feature information window, but I guess it doesn't come up in the park name in the visual preview table, which is sort of surprising. I thought it did. I thought it said in here null, but maybe it doesn't. And I suspect we could remove that attribute, and that would make it missing rather than null. So if I say let's remove the visitor count, throw that into the tester, and now we'll just test if visitor count has a value. Some of those should not have a value because I removed the attribute, and they should be missing. So there we go, visitor count is missing. So I removed that attribute. We know it should be there because the schema tells us that, but it isn't, so we flag it as missing. So we can remove attributes, we can set them to blanks, we can set them to null. Another way to do that in bulk is with the null attribute replacer. Where are we? Null attribute replacer? Oh, it's got a different name. Null attribute mapper. That's what it's called now, the null attribute mapper. And the null attribute mapper is just another way of us saying, let's make something null, or let's change it from null to whatever. So in this case, let's go back to the original where we were looking at park name has a value, and we saw that some of them didn't. Some of them were missing. So we could say, well, I don't want it to be missing, so I'll use the null attribute mapper to map those to something else. Now, what could I map it to? Well, I could map it to anything I like. I could really make it a null. So I could say, if it's null, empty, or missing, then set it to null. And now that attribute won't be missing, it won't be empty, it'll actually be null. Park name will be null. If I query on here, park name is null in the feature information window. So I can map things to null. I could map it to completely empty, different value. I could say map it to unknown park, like so. So these are the ways we can deal with with null values. The question there: did I get a medal for that addition? No, because I only suggested it. I didn't develop it myself or anything. But that'd be nice. We did a long time ago. We did used to get cinema tickets if we found a bug. If we found a bug and it was fixed and confirmed and then fixed, we get a movie ticket. So you can imagine that everybody wanted to get in on product testing when we used to do that. Okay, what did I map it to? Oh, I mapped it to unknown park. That's it. So now we've just got a we've got a set value now that says unknown park. So this is, and again, I know the question was answered. I just wanted to sort of show some of the different things that we can do with, there we go, unknown park down at the bottom. Some of the things we can do with nulls inside FME, just as a quick demo to any new users who don't really know how they work. And the final thing we should really mention about nulls is that sometimes you read something and it becomes a null when you write it to a different format. So for example, well actually I'm just going to generate a new workspace. If I convert my map info tab to geodatabase, it may be that because that value is missing and geodatabase probably doesn't like missing values, what am I going to call it? Let's call it newparks.gdb. Can I do that? Will it? No. Yeah, I mean, if geodatabase doesn't like null parks, I hate it when it does that. I mean, I know why we do that, but I don't like it all the same. So we had some values that were missing. When we write it out, if geodatabase didn't like missing, then we would probably change them to be null officially. And probably the way I can check that, wrong button there, I meant to do this. Let's look in the output folder, park name, and we click on that, and park name is null. So in other words, even though these features came in with values that were missing for park name, when we write them out to geodatabase doesn't like missing values. It obviously can't handle them the same way that map info tab can, and so we replaced it with an actual null value. So you might find that FME does some mapping automatically as required to handle that. And if we read those back using the geodatabase reader, we'll read them as null instead of missing. So yeah, that's probably the last thing to be aware of about nulls. I mean, like I mentioned, there's so many different ways you can do null. Like I could put an attribute setter or whatever let's put an attribute manager in. That would make more sense. Like the tree count, if I didn't know what the value was, I could set it to null, or I could just set it to 0, and 0 might signify something. It might signify, I don't know. Or it might signify that there are 0 trees. So that's often why we use the null value, because it has a purpose. So yeah, we can do things like that. Yeah, so that was a quick excursion through nulls in FME. Oh, the one... I always keep thinking of a bit more. The one more thing I should mention is the Raster no data setter, which... Raster band, probably. Raster band no data setter. So, no data on raster is a very interesting concept. No data is you telling that raster that a certain value in that cell means nothing. It's not like you set the cell to be null. You just say, if this value is X, then treat it as null. So it doesn't really work the same way as a vector, and that's why it's worth mentioning. So if I read some raster, let's see, geotiff. Let me read some geotiff. Let's see. Because this always throws a lot of people, I think, and it sort of throws me as well sometimes. Especially when you've got multiple bands. You're like, okay, well, what does that really mean? So if I read this data, it might not have a no data set right now. Let's have a look. I wonder how we can tell. See, I don't see anything appearing in there. So what no data does basically means is that value, if it has that value, it's going to count as null in effect. So if I zoom in here and just query that cell, green is 142, so I could say, well, 142 is my no data value. And now let's basically set that value to null. If I run that and look at the output, we'll probably find that that is a null cell. It disappears. Which cell was it? That's going to be the problem finding it. Anyway, yeah, so that sets the value to null. And again, it's very interesting to see how that might work with multiple bands, because unless you set it the same for all of the bands. Right, so let me go back to this and say, what was that value? So what I could do, let's see. So yeah, it's very odd how to do this, but you have the raster selector. Can we set the different no data on different bands? Maybe we can. So if I say band 0, which should be red, sorry, I'm looking. See how confusing it is. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, well, how does that work? If I mark the whole raster as a group, you see the no data, not selecting the single pixel. See, is there something here that tells me it's no data? No data value 142. So it's the same for all. So if anything's got the value 142, it's going to disappear, or it's going to be invisible, I believe. So if I go back to where I was and look at that data, it's just that if it's no data, I thought it should disappear from here. And now, of course, I can't find that value that cell I was looking at before. So I don't know where it is. But the green, that green cell that was 142 on the green band, that should be invisible. So it should be only red and blue. And I would expect to get a slightly different color because the green's invisible. But I can't remember where exactly that was. So I guess we're going to have to take my word for that's how it works. And yeah, you can do that for every band. And yeah, if you've got an alpha band, you could probably do the same. You could probably mark no data on the alpha band. So if you did that, because the alpha band specifies the what do we call it? The visibility of it, the transparency of it. So if you set no data to it on the alpha band, it could just ignore that, I guess, and make it fully transparent. I don't really know. We'd have to experiment with that one. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting a bit sidetracked because we were talking about nulls, but really I just wanted to mention this because it's sort of the null for raster, and it's not as simple as saying, well, this cell is null and that cell is null. It's an actual value in there. So if you've got values between 0 and 255, you can flag one of them as being no data. But maybe you don't want to do that. That's the drawback with this. So, and I guess you might say 0 is your no data, but if you do that, anything that's 0, 0, 0 is going to get flagged as no data, and it would probably disappear from the view. So yeah, anything that was 0, 0, 0 in here now should be transparent, but I don't know that we're going to find any. It will be complete black, wouldn't it? 0, 0, 0. I know another. Actually, doesn't matter. We'll leave that for now. But that's how that would work. So, see, when you go off roading, you start thinking of different things and how to show them. And really, I've sort of showed what I wanted to. So that was one question. And yeah, it had a perfectly fine answer. I just wanted to cover nulls in a bit more detail. Going back to the topic of raster, there was this one that I saw, and it said, I have a very large raster in the shapefile with polygons, and the process is looping where the raster is clipped with every polygon. In order to avoid reading the whole raster every time, you use the bounce of the polygon directly in the search envelope of a reader. And I was thinking, well, does that actually make a difference? Because this is totally unrelated to their question, which was, what do we do about the inside port on a clipper? But it just made me wonder, do you actually need to do that? Because I don't think FME actually does anything to a raster. Even if you read it, it won't do anything to that raster until something happens to make it need to be read, to be processed. So for example, I have this mosaic data, and I've got all of those parks again. Let me add the parks data back in. So say I wanted to clip my tab. I shouldn't talk and try and do things at the same time. It's always a bad mistake. Data parks. Say I wanted to clip that and create a separate output for each geotiff. I mean, that got me thinking, well, the first thing that seems obvious to me is that you could just clip the whole thing anyway, and then do a fan out on the outputs. So in other words, just, I mean, this really depends on if your clippers are going to overlap or not. But if they don't overlap, see if I run this and see what we get out of it, it'll probably be a whole bunch of, let's see. It'll come up in a second. The other problem with this, of course, is caching this data. So whenever you run this for real, you certainly want to turn caching off. I should probably turn caching off anyway. Let me do that. Turn caching off, put an inspector on, see if that helps. I suspect it might not because it's still going to write the output. I mean, the point is that if you did want to do that, you could do a fan out on the output and then it wouldn't. Yeah, I should resample it, I guess, then that wouldn't be such an issue. I mean, I only did it, I sort of mosaic this together earlier because I wanted to see. But yeah, these are all clipped parts. Are they separate features? I think they are. So if I put a GeoTIFF writer in there, let's output. Yeah, I should have resampled that raster to make it quicker. Excuse me, but I didn't. So yeah, let's go with that one. And see, I'm wondering if we get any attributes in the park. Say if we merge some attributes on there. There we go, park ID, and we could fan out by park dash and the park ID, and that way there's no need to loop. We're just doing it once. As long as the clippers don't overlap, it won't be a problem. And in 2022, which this is actually, even that shouldn't be a problem because we should be able to. Now, how was this done? Because I know. It's interesting. Did it stop? Oh, I wonder if it's an aggregate. Because some of the parks are aggregates, maybe it aggregated the raster in the output. But yeah, in the clipper in 2022, it's changed now so that you should be able to clip overlapping clippers. Clip interim results. I think that's the one we want. And what that means is you should be able to, even if the clippers do overlap. There we go, that worked that time. So yeah, so we got that fine by doing that. But in 2022, you should be able to set, I'm pretty sure it means clip interim results. And so even if the clippers overlap, it will still output a separate thing for you. I wonder how we can test that. Okay, we're going to put a resampler in just because that'll make it. Let's resample it down to like 20%. I'm going to throw a sampler in because now that's got me curious because I was going to say, well, there's another way of doing this, but it did just occur to me literally just that second that every 10th feature, say, I want to find some that overlap, so I'm going to have to buffer them by some crazy amount, I guess. just to make sure we do get some overlaps. Because I'm sure... what does the clipper do? I think in the outside parts, yeah, because obviously a raster's got to be square. So, see, now I've got to turn caching back on. Yeah, obviously the raster's got to be square, so I'm guessing it might set that as no data, but we'll have a look in a moment. Or it might be an alphabet. I don't know. We'll have a look. Okay, well that's certainly got some overlaps going on there. Wow, I buffered that way more than I thought. So traditional clipper would have created just one, where you have multiple overlaps, you'd only get that once, and you wouldn't get it in every clipper. But I suspect the new improved one shouldn't do that. Now I'm going to find that out. That's going to be... I think what we can do here is do a fan out on the inspector. That would show it. Let's see, it would be the park ID. Yeah, see, it's still looking like it's in bits to me, and I don't think it should be. See, that should cover the whole lot, and I wonder why it doesn't. Maybe I've got the wrong setting. I could have swore it was clip interim. See, I'm totally going off road again because it just didn't occur to me until this point that that's what it would. Oh, there we go. It says in the help what it does. Bands with a no data value assigned, it'll be set to no data. Bands without a no data value, it will be, let's see, RGB, alpha band is added. So that'll be an alpha band in there. So if I look at one of these, what have I got there? I should have 8 features. Oh, that's what I wanted. So yeah, if I look at one of these and query that point there, it should have an alpha value, yeah. And if I set the no data value before it got to there, then that would be the no data. So if I set as to band no data set, if I set the no data value to be like, I know, well, it doesn't really matter because it's going to come out grey because it's applying it to every band. That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm going on from the help. It says, oh, there we go, that worked better. Perfect. So I must have got the setting wrong on the clipper. So yeah, the brand new clipper, and if I query a point outside, yeah, 128, no data. So it's a no data value in there. It doesn't look particularly grey, but maybe it's because it's not showing no data, it's showing it as transparent for no data. Yeah, you need to use a no data remover before the clipper to... Anyway, so yeah, 2022, that solves this problem because the user was... Where are we? Let's go back to here. The user was reading that raster file lots and lots and lots of times and running it through the clipper. And I don't think they need to do that now. I think they can get away with reading it just once and pushing it through the clipper, even with multiple clippers. And the key value seems to be setting overlapping clippers to clip original candidates. And that way each of the clipped features will cover the whole area. Actually, I should just write that. It will be a lot easier. Okay, and there's so many of them because I didn't empty it out from before. Okay, let's just rerun that again. And we should find it. We've got 8 features now, and they all cover. So even though they overlap, they cover that. I'm really happy about that. I'm glad I started to look at that, because that honestly didn't even occur to me that we can output all the things that overlap, even if it's an overlapping clipper. So that saves a heck of a problem. What I was going to suggest was you clone the raster for every park feature and do it separately. But yeah, we don't need to do that now. That is absolutely awesome. I'm really happy about that. Yeah, so that would be something we can do there. Sorry, I'm just looking at the chat, see if there's any other questions. Okay, let's look at the final thing I wanted to look at today. Was this one, and I haven't really. This is really going to be off-roading, because I really haven't tried it. So what the user needs to do is they've got polygons of various sizes, and they need to proportionally allocate those polygons over various groups. And I'm not quite sure how that works, because they're saying you don't need to worry about the spatial position. You just want the best group allocation of each polygon. So what I was thinking was the SpatialSorter transformer. I think that would be. I'm going to start a new workspace up, because I want to keep that one I've got in the background, because that really is useful. Yeah, all I could think of was a SpatialSorter, and whether we could allocate things in that basis. Like, I know, like if I look for a polygon layer that covers all of the city, what have I got? Parcels would do it. Yeah, I want parcels. Parcels.dwg. Let's see what that gets us. I mean, it's going to be very rough and ready, because I'm really totally not sure what the user's trying to achieve here. Oh, there's something else. Somebody mentioned it earlier, and I'm like, oh man, I got to try that. Remind me, it's the workspace comparison thing. I gotta try that. Okay, so you can see as that's drawing, it's drawing all of those things, all of those different. Are they polygons, or is it just lines? I think it's lines, isn't it? So I'm going to have to build some areas to start with, which will be interesting. Let's see, what did we get? 17,000 areas. And yeah, it's building them in no particular order. So you can't really group them together as such. But what we could do is throw the SpatialSorter in there. So just for example, like there's 17,000 features. So let's say I want to sample. The user said like maybe 60% of them. So let's say, what would 60% be? Every nth feature. Okay, my brain is going a bit. It must be Friday afternoon. every second feature. Let's just say 50%. Every second feature. So if we sampled those at random, we'd still get them all over the city. But if we sorted them first, then I'm hoping we would get them grouped together in a particular area. And that would make it more... See, that didn't really look much different to me. Am I doing this wrong? It did seem to... I'd have to play with that because I'm not sure... Like if I look through in order, closer ones ought to be together. Well, let's see, what happens if I sample... Not randomizing. Oh, hang on, no, randomizing the first... I just don't want every second feature. That would be the problem. So say I want the first 5,000 features, approximately 30% of that. Oh, that's Friday afternoons for you. But then again, I always say Monday mornings. So yeah, so that, I mean, that looks like, so that was what 30% say, and if we want the next 30%, I could just throw in another sampler like this. And that would be a different set of features from that, which we could prove just by changing the color. So that's what I was thinking would be a good solution for that problem. I don't know if we've got fill color as well, but we'll set it. So yeah, so that, I mean, that seemed to me a good way of doing that. And then maybe if that user wanted to resample, dissolve them together, or just do something like that, then that might work. Wow, 11:30 on a Friday night, and you're sitting watching an FME stream. Well done. We're proud of you. Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, hopefully I can share this with that user, and maybe they can make something out of that. But yeah, SpatialSorter, I think, is the key for that. Well, thank you for tuning in on 11:30 in the evening. That's pretty appreciated, I got to say. And it's nice to have some people here and know that I'm actually this week things actually did go okay, and in fact they went better than okay, because we came up with a solution here for this clipping that I never expected to see. So hopefully I can get back to that user and say no need to be looping, just do the clipper, set that particular value in the parameters, and it'll work fine. So that's pretty amazing. So yeah, I'm going to start playing with the commands in the chat, because I don't think anyone's tried a lot of these, and so if you want to do that, that's good. Yeah, if you're tuning in, if you're not following me, hit the follow button, because that would be really appreciated. If we get a certain number of followers, we can do more of a community. We can start making people VIPs, and then we can start doing polls and forecasts and stuff like that on here, and predictions. All good fun. So the more people we get as followers on Twitch and on YouTube as well, the more things that we can do that are just a bit fun, liven things up. So yeah, I think that's going to be everything for today. So we just did a quick run through of what Nulls are about, the clipping thing that was going on, and yeah, optimizing groupings. I think that's gets them off to a good start. Yeah, the Haiku command, that actually pings out to FME server, and FME server generates a haiku and streams it back into Twitch, which I'm really quite proud of that one. I don't know why. I mean, it's just a stupid thing, but yeah, it does generate a haiku that's completely different each time, or it should do. So if I do that command as well, it should come back something different. There we go. So yeah, now you know it's just a little bit of fun. But, and if you want to know how that worked, I think I made a video of it somewhere. It was on that channel. Somewhere on here, it was about streaming. Oh my! I'm actually streaming live to here at the same time. So somewhere in here, I did about how. There we go. Hooking up FME to Twitch. That's how.
Webhooks.
If you're interested, that's how. That's how you can connect Twitch to FME server, have it generate a random haiku, and then send it back to Twitch. So if you're ever interested in how that works, there's a video there. Okay, well then I'm going to call it a day. Thanks for joining me, especially if you're over in Europe and it's really, really late. Again, as I mentioned at the start, everyone over here in North America is thinking of the folks in Europe and Ukraine and hoping that things improve and don't go any further downhill. It's such a mess, and I can't say half the things I'd like to say about it because I'm on a work stream. But it's just, everyone that's safe, I know we're hoping it gets resolved as soon as possible. So we're thinking of folks over there for sure. And the one final thing I should mention, I don't know why it made me think of that, but we have the community, there's a contest going on next week. Well, actually for the whole of March. It is FME's favourite transformer. And so if you're at all interested, you can just look at this page on our website, on the community, and it will tell you all about that event. And basically click on the link, takes you to the bracket that we've got set up, and from Monday morning about 7 a.m. Vancouver time, you can hit the vote button and start voting on the matches that are listed there. And it's just a bracket thing that we'll get to vote on FME's favourite transformer. And if you click on the matches, actually it comes up with what it is, which one against the other one, some details. If anyone was picked it as their favourite transformer in that previous poll I did, then you'll be listed in there as its sort of cheerleader or champion. And you can even click on the transformer itself and it will tell you more about that transformer. So, just a bit of fun. That starts on Monday. Next week will be the first round, then the second round the week after, quarterfinals the week after, and then the final week of March we'll do semi-finals and finals. And so don't forget to check that out, especially Monday morning. Again, thanks again for tuning in. I'll stop talking now and let you get off to bed or whatever it is you're doing, whichever part of the world you're in. He was cheering for the feature writer. Is Siki, you the feature writer? Oh, you are. You're the feature writer cheerleader. Well, there you go. Well done for telling us how great it is here. Now go and tell everyone on the community or in Twitter or whatever how great it is as well, and get them to cheer for it. Although I suspect versus the logger, it's going to be a fairly straightforward victory, I would hope. It's only going to be in the future rounds when you come up maybe against a feature reader versus feature writer. That's going to be that would be a big matchup. So this one's going to be fun, I think. There's a geometry filter versus a schema mapper, and the schema mapper's the outsider in that, but I think that one's got a good chance of winning. I don't know. Geometry filter just doesn't do much for me. So anyway. So that's great. So please do, if you want to cheer about your transformer, your favorite, make a video of yourself if you like. I don't know. jump out of a plane with a parachute on and the transformer across it, whatever you like to promote your favorite transformer and help it win. Yeah, not much love for the logger. I can't see that one getting too far. But then again, these transformers I picked, they all came from that previous survey that I did, where I said let everybody list your 5 favorite transformers, and so somebody out there must really like the logger because it did get in here, and somebody must like the geometry filter and the others, which I'm like, really? I wouldn't say that the string searcher was my favorite, but hey, it is for somebody. And we even have the no features tester. Somebody even, and again, I mean, somebody obviously liked it, but it must have been a lot of people to like it to actually get into the top 30 or whatever, 32 transformers for this contest. So somebody out there likes a no features tester. So don't be surprised at some of the things that are coming up. It's going to be fun, and especially with the World Tour starting soon, it's going to have a lot of things coming up. So anyway, I really will go this time. Thanks again for tuning in. It's great to have people online when I'm going through this. Yes, I noticed you did submit multiple responses. That's why. Yeah, I think you responded 3 times to that, which was pretty funny. But hey, that's okay. It gave me some extra data points there that I could use in the seeding for this contest. So, see, now I started talking again. I'm going to stop. Really, I'm going to stop talking this time because this is going on far too long. Thank you, everyone, again for staying up all night, and It's been great. I'll be back online next week. I finished all the previews of sneak peeks of 2022, but we'll find something else to stream that's interesting, that's for sure. So, yeah. Okay, well, with that, I will say goodbye. So take care, and I'll see you another time. See you, folks.